Hi, I'm Ashley Liddell, and this is SEO in 2025.
Ashley, what's your number one SEO tip for 2025?
Yeah, so I think audiences are diversifying the platforms that they're leveraging for search. And I think that the search landscape is democratizing. So as that happens, SEOs need to be democratizing their content strategies to go across these platforms and leverage this search universe that's emerging.
So what does this mean in practice? Search universe, I like that phrase there. But do SEOs have to be everywhere and be in as many places as possible for organic discovery? Or is it just a case of understanding users and being on the platforms that are most likely to appeal to them?
Exactly that. So I think it's more about being everywhere and being in front of everyone is going to be tough in terms of, okay, we need to be on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and that's going to become really cost inefficient. It's about identifying the platforms that are going to be most likely to connect you with your audiences and with your communities and investing heavily in those platforms. So if that comes out of your insights that's Google, then that's where we'll be investing our time. If it emerges that TikTok or Reddit or Pinterest are those platforms, then you should be investing in those platforms alongside Google for your search strategies.
Yeah, I like that advice because if you try to be everywhere, then you're not going to do a good job of listening to each platform, but also the style of content that you need to publish in different places is going to be slightly different. So you're not going to be natively appealing in those individual platforms.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's becoming easier as social platforms are sort of converging and the way we deliver content on the platforms is becoming sort of homogenous, I think is the word, across the likes of YouTube Short.
Homogenized? Yeah.
Yeah. Like across the likes of Instagram, TikTok, and then YouTube Shorts, for example, you'd be able to do similar content to appeal to those three platforms. And then your forum platforms like your Reddits and your Discords, they'd have similar content. So I think it's identifying where you can show up with your activations, where it's going to look native and delivering it as natively as you can.
So what does this mean for the customer journey nowadays? Is it tougher to actually keep a track of where customers are and what they're doing prior to making a purchase?
I think that there's more steps needed. I'm not sure that it's tougher because I think it actually mirrors the steps that we've always taken. So we've always done research into top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom funnel to identify the content that we need to leverage at that stage of the journey anyway. It's just that we've typically done that on a Google search. There's now just that extra step of understanding which platforms that's taking place upon. So it's finding those insights, whether that's immersing yourself in the platform directly and taking those steps manually, or whether it's leveraging tools that are starting to emerge across the space to allow us to do that. That needs to be sort of established. But in terms of more difficult, I think SEOs will find it easy to do that. It's just an extra step in our process.
But is it not more difficult to actually define the content that they're engaging on that particular platform? You mentioned TikTok and Reddit, the obviously third-party services. Mm-hmm. So if a user is spending a lot of time on there as well, on your handle, on your channel, on your whatever it's called, those different examples, then you're in the dark to a certain degree about what they're doing on there before they actually make the decision to come to your site.
A little bit. I think TikTok, especially if we use that example first, that's getting better because they're embracing that search functionality and they're actually giving us search insights. So we can see the queries that they're taking, the same as we do on Google, to understand what content they're seeking in that discovery stage, in that inspire stage, for example. And I think that other tools will start to roll out similar features. Pinterest already has this. Reddit are already doing this, and we can attach the Reddit keyword to our Google keywords to get an insight into that as well. So I think the capabilities to find what content we need to be serving, what queries we need to be meeting is already there. It just needs to maybe become slightly more sophisticated over the next 6, 12, 18 months. And as it does, that will become easier and easier. I would acknowledge that there's probably a bit more of a manual step there at the moment compared to what we're used to from traditional search. But again, I don't think it's necessarily difficult for SEOs to get their head around. It's just that extra step.
So how do you identify if a platform is right for a brand? If a brand should move into TikTok or Reddit or something else?
So it definitely comes down initially to gut instinct, the idea of categories. Certain categories lend themselves to the social search landscape currently, and that's going to mature, and more categories as more users start leveraging TikTok, Instagram, whatever platform it is for social search, more categories are going to become involved. I'd say that right now, the lifestyle sort of brands are the ones that are lending themselves to that conversation. Once we've sort of said, okay, this brand is a lifestyle brand, we look at the audience that they're trying to attract. That's a Gen Z, a millennial audience. Those younger audiences are already displaying that they're willing to embrace social search. So we'd then be saying, okay, the category is a good category for social search right now. The audience that they're trying to attract, we know that they're embracing social search based on Google's own sort of evidences and then industry sort of research pieces into social search. So then we'd follow that and say, okay, let's go and look on a Google Trends, on the platforms themselves, and see what conversations are taking place. So yeah, it's definitely going to mature over the next year, where more brands, more categories are going to be able to leverage social search. But those would be the indicators I'd look at right now.
So what are some specific metrics that you look at to determine whether or not interaction on other platforms has been a success?
It comes back to traditional search ultimately. So although TikTok touch points, Reddit touch points when I can speak, and Pinterest touch points, they're all taking place. But before the stage of conversion, we expect a branded search to take place on Google, and we believe that that still takes place. So if we can see that brand search plus the thing that we've been creating content around on TikTok starts to grow, then that's a good indication for us that our content is starting to resonate with users. And then obviously we can look within the platforms themselves and we can look to things like views, impressions. Is this ranking? So TikTok will tell us where it's ranking on a SERP, now on a TikTok SERP, not a Google SERP. And we can start to see where that's performing and how that's being picked up. The SERP features as well on TikTok that we can sort of leverage and say that being picked up there. And all of these become metrics for success. But I'd say that the main one always comes back to a traditional search at the moment, and it's about growing share of search, branded search.
Got you. So it's growing that brand search to demonstrate that people have discovered you elsewhere. What do you do on these other platforms like TikTok then to get people to remember your brand? And what, if anything, do you do for your own site, for your own website, to make your website as likely as possible to surface for the brand queries that you're trying to encourage?
Yeah, so the first part of that, it's about, we talked about earlier, looking native on the platform. So on a TikTok, for example, we can't be overly pushy or overly salesy. We need to be doing it subtly and getting our brand over subtly. And what that means, and this is similar for other platforms, but especially TikTok, is we need to be putting the community at the heart of everything that we're doing. So it's really speaking to that community about a pain that a niche community's got, a want, a need, or a desire, and meeting the needs of that head on. And if we can have those conversations with branded communities, if we can have those conversations with niche communities, that's what we're looking for in terms of growing that brand community, growing that advocacy towards a brand, and then on the backside of that, developing that awareness. And then to your second point, in terms of how we're showing up, it's been a lot of sort of traditional search for us as the foundation, as the core. The reason for that is that we're obviously a B2B business as Deviation. So we're sort of trying to speak to people that are seeking SEO services. So that's still taking place on a traditional search. But what we're doing is we're supporting that with the social search stuff as a way of evidencing that we get what we can talk the talk, but we can also walk the walk. So you'll find a lot of repurposed content on our TikTok, across my own LinkedIn and across the likes of YouTube and YouTube Shorts as well.
You talk about the importance of optimizing for pains, needs, wants, and desires. How do you identify them to begin with?
It all comes back to traditional keyword research. So the old, if it's not broken, don't try to fix it sort of mentality. The traditional keyword research can be amplified, and we can add social search insights into that. So what we do is we start with our traditional keyword universe from a brand, and that becomes our source of truth in terms of we know that these are being searched for either historically or right now on a Google search. But as that search migrates to other platforms, it becomes important to understand, okay, can we add or can we map TikTok keywords to this universe? Can we map Pinterest keywords, Reddit keywords, whatever it is, whatever platform we're leveraging at the time, to those keyword universes? And what we emerge with is a keyword set that not only focuses on traditional search, but it's got insights across the search universe and across the platforms that we're leveraging for that brand.
You also say that brands need to act more like creators. What can brands learn from creators?
One of the biggest things is authenticity. Creators, especially those that are smaller, probably less than 100,000 followers, they have to be authentic. They have to be speaking to their audience in a relatable way, in a relevant way. And they have to be speaking to their audience in a truthful way that develops that trustworthiness. And on the back of that, they're then perceived as authentic and they're developing that authoritativeness. All of those sort of buzzwords that I've just sort of spoke about there, they lend themselves to search marketing and what Google has historically told us they're looking for content. So if brands can embrace that idea of being truly authentic, not trying to fake authenticity, but actually helping their user with a pain, need, want, or desire, which are the terms I always go back to. If they can do that, then they're going to build that community, they're going to get that advocacy, and they're going to develop the awareness on the back of that.
And I guess there's two different ways that a brand could proceed with this. They could either actually come up with a content strategy and run with it themselves and create their own channels and really build their own followers from that, or they could identify creators and try to work with them and leverage the fact that they've already got an audience. Is there any particular direction that's better?
I'd say it's a combination of the two. I think that embracing both is actually the way to go. That'll be an element of having search content sit on owned channels, but also having search content by UGC, by EGC, and then also by those content creator relationships that you're able to leverage and develop. I think that embracing all sort of, or both of those ideals is the best way to go. If you was to put me on the spot and say, we've only got budget for one, which would you embrace? I would personally go for the creator-led model. Reason being, as you rightly pointed out, Dave, it's easier because they've got access to those communities already. There's maybe people that aren't aware of your brand within their community. So you're able to access those niche communities that I've already spoke about that are going to be so important for social search at an easier rate, at a more accessible rate than if you try and grow your own channel. But I will sort of reaffirm, I would try and do both if you can.
I know UGC is user-generated content. What's EGC?
EGC would be employee-generated content. So that can sit on owned channels, or if brands are brave enough and willing to embrace it, they can allow staff to put their own content on their own channels, talking about the brand that they work for and the brand that they work with.
If an SEO is struggling for time, what should they stop doing right now so they can spend more time doing what you suggest in 2025?
I would say that we need to stop over obsessing over the Google algorithm updates. Hopefully what's come across in this chat is that I still think Google and traditional search are vital to what we're doing as SEOs, but over obsessing over what comes out of a Google algorithm update, I think that that's detrimental to the longevity and the long-term success of SEO strategies. What I would do instead is just focus on doing effective content to speak to your audience. If you are authentic, relevant, and trustworthy, that's always going to be successful. So I wouldn't just react to what comes out of a helpful content update or a core algorithm update, because as we've seen over the course of this year, Google can change the mind from one update to another, and you're always playing a short-term game there. I'd just look at the longevity and the long-term success instead.
Ashley Liddell is the co-founder at Deviation, and you can find him over at wearedeviation.co.uk. Ashley, thanks so much for being part of SEO in 2025.
Thank you, David. I appreciate it.
I've been your host, David Bain. Get your copy of SEO in 2025, the book, over at SEOin2025.com.